Shomrabyug.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the digital tiny room. Come rain, shine, or COVID-19, we'll always be here, except when we take 2 breaks a year, one at Christmas and one in summer, very briefly. I am the Michael of Michaelandbenjaminspodcast, and I am joined by the man from whom I learned this week that inside every Benjamin there is a strong, confident woman. It's Benjamin.
I am every woman, Michael, and I'm back.
Yeah, look, Ben, that'll pay off later. That's a little hint for what we're going to talk about later.
Ah, nice. I love a little bit of foreshadowing on my podcast, almost as much as I love the theme music.
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music.
Buttery smooth, Benjamin. Benjamin. The biggest release in the world of science fiction, fantasy, superheroes, and dark fantasy and science fiction fantasy this week is Code 8 featuring Stephen Amell.
Mr. Stephen Amell.
The Green Arrow himself.
The Hood himself.
Yeah, the Spectre himself.
The Spectre. It's just, look, yeah, great. We're going to be watching that this week, apparently, Michael.
We're going to watch it later, Ben, but we can't really talk about it this week because we haven't bloody well seen it yet, have we?
No, but we're just going to do a little bit of foreshadowing for next week's episode, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good.
A bit of foreshadowing for next week's episode. So yeah, that'll be good. That'll be golden. What's it about, Michael?
I don't know, Ben. It's about superheroes, I think. It's about a man who has superpowers and some friends.
How different for Stephen Amell. Okay.
Yeah. It's a feature film version of a short film that they made a few years ago.
Good to see him stretching his range there.
Yes.
Good to see him stretching his range.
The Green Arrow.
I finally finished with that restrictive, pigeonholing role of mine and superheroes and stuff. What kind of amazing project could I do next? I could do a gritty drama. I could do a touching romance. I could do a deep and thoughtful reflection on the universe through character work. I'll do another superhero flick.
I could do a thing where I get fat.
I could do one of those.
I bet you
they seem to be quite popular.
Yeah, he'd probably love to get fat.
Ah, who wouldn't after all those workouts?
Nom 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 nom. No more salmon ladders for Stephen Amell.
Oh, screw that. Salmon ladders.
The only ladder he'd be going up was the ladder to get the salmon to eat.
We should definitely do a salmon ladder vlog. How to get your salmon ladder game up.
I reckon I can do a salmon ladder.
We could call it Bear With Us because it's got salmon in it. And
bit tenuous.
I'm gonna stick it in anyway, Michael. We've done more with less.
But Ben, speaking of tenuous, you this week sent us a video from Anthony Mackie.
I did. Speaking of tenuous, well, Michael, as you know, in this lockdown limbo, that we're currently experiencing, there's feck all new being put out into the world.
Code 8 with Stephen Amell.
Code 8 with Stephen Amell, which we haven't seen yet. And Michael, as you know, when we haven't seen something, it's like it never happened until we have seen it.
Yeah, never happened.
Yeah, because that's the podcast logic that we run off here. That's our belief system here at the podcast. But on top of that, Michael,
yes.
I was taking a look at the internet. I'm going through the internet archives.
You're gonna finish the internet, all right?
Yes, I'm gonna finish the internet finally, after years of trying. And I stumbled across a little thing by Mr. Anthony Mackie, or as you might know him, much to his chagrin apparently.
Yeah,
the Falcon.
Oh, I know him as Clarence
from
8 Mile. Ben, the film 8 Mile.
Oh, he's not Clarence from the 8.
He is.
Oh, from 8 Mile. Yeah, sorry. No, I should have gotten that. I was confusing 8 Mile with the Green Mile.
No, they're different.
I was like, that's Michael Clark Duncan. No, he's a much bigger man.
That's quite racist.
That'll get me in trouble.
Yeah.
Fun. So anyway, and he was giving a little speech at some kind of Comic-Con or such too.
Looked like an MCM Comic-Con.
Looked like an MCM Comic-Con, which we have dubious feelings about at the best of times. But it looked like an MCM Comic-Con. And one of the things I found fascinating about this was, Michael, he seems to be very candid in his bashing of the movie industry.
Yeah.
In this particular interview, which I thought that was a brave choice for a man whose bread and butter comes from a bunch of superhero films made by a corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had some stones going into that one, Michael, or just a complete lack of self-awareness, which I fear it might be the latter, but we'll see.
Could be a bit of both. Look, the thing was over 2 years ago, Ben. Anyway, he gives out about sequels and movies for kids and movies for China, even though the Chinese are a grand bunch of lads.
Grand bunch of lads, please sponsor us at the podcast.
And he basically decries, that's not the right word, he basically predicts the end of the cinema going experience.
Yes, 2 years ago, when there was no COVID-19 outbreak. I'm not sure he was successful in that prediction. It's an interesting video. Basically, he says that the age of the movie star has come and gone, to which the rest of the world kind of says, okay,
good.
big whoop.
Yeah, good.
Like I don't see why that's a relevant point to make. And then he kind of says the problem with modern cinema is that you root for a character. But I just found it very interesting, Michael. I sent it to our little WhatsApp group, Sean Biog, where a good friend of the pod and sometimes nemesis of myself on the internet, Shane, had a little analysis on it. It was quite a succinct analysis. It's a little bit holier than thou, his attitude towards cinema, and he seems to be bemoaning the fact that cinema goers and narratives have evolved past using a celebrity to make a character.
Yeah.
I found it very interesting.
I would have thought that's a good thing.
I also would have thought it was a good thing, but he also made an interesting point on how the cinema going experience has become something of a cash grab for cinemas because they have to try and stay afloat.
I mean, the cinema has always been expensive, hasn't it?
Well, you see, this is the thing, Michael. It's gotten more expensive in Ireland, but in Ireland I still think it's more reasonable than it is in many other places around the world. I think in the United States you pay on average around $25 to $30 a ticket.
Do you?
For a new release?
I've been to the cinema in the United States quite a few times, Ben, as you know, because I travel over for premieres.
For premieres quite often.
Yes. And I have found the prices there comparable to Ireland, if not generally slightly cheaper.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think people who are complaining about like $25 for a ticket, they're going to the Saturday matinee and they're including their drink and their sweets and their popcorn in it.
Which you don't have to have, Michael.
You don't have
to. You don't have to have.
Also, bear in mind that $25 is probably about €19.
Yeah, which is probably what we'd pay for a big fancy.
Yeah, if you went to see Avengers Endgame in 3D on opening weekend on a Saturday night in the city centre, €19. €19, pretty easy. Spend out €19 on that.
Pretty easy, not including the bloody Lewis fare to get in, the bloody popcorn, the bloody sweets, because you'd have to get the sweets, Michael. You'd have to get the popped corn. Be awful. But I found it to be an interesting video, Michael, and it was only after a good friend of the podcast and my sometimes nemesis Shane pointed out that he's a little bit high and mighty there to be sitting there saying celebrities are more important than the character themselves.
I disagree with him there. I disagree. To be honest, Ben, I watched that clip from him. It's not the most coherent. It's not something he's really thought out. He contradicts himself a couple of times. I think it was just off the cuff. It was probably something to... The thing about Anthony Mackie is he's a comedian as well. And a big part of his draw is his kind of quickness and his little rants. And, they're not always the most well thought out things. So, yeah, I mostly disagreed with him. But then again, my livelihood doesn't depend on a cult of personality developing around me.
It doesn't.
And people going, check out that latest Anthony Mackie joint.
But I also found it kind of interesting because he's in a franchise where there is a huge cult of personality attached to three of the main actors.
Who?
Chris Hemsworth. Everybody goes to see Chris Hemsworth, Thor.
No,
they don't go to see.
Nah. Do they? Is it
Robert Downey Jr.?
No.
Come on.
How did Dr. Dolittle do there?
Oh yeah, fair.
Yeah. How did Men in Black International do?
Oh, that was a winner, Michael. Did you not see it? It was great.
I think Anthony Mackie's right about that. Robert Downey Jr. has become one of the biggest movie stars in the world. But not as Robert Downey Jr., as Iron Man.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. All right. Okay.
See what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing.
No. I think it's important to focus on the storyline more than that's the whole reason we have this podcast, Michael.
Exactly, Ben. Exactly.
Yeah, because we're focusing on the characters, not necessarily the people who play them. No, it was just an interesting little aside, Michael. I found it.
But Benjamin, anyway, speaking about the cinema going experience, good friend
Go
of the podcast, Nine Wassies, has given us a kind of alternative cinema going experience that I've never heard of, but you had. So why don't you tell us very briefly about it?
I had. I have the pleasure of knowing somebody who works for this company. It is not sponsored. Just before that goes out into the world, Mubi is an online streaming service. It's an app and an online streaming service that curates classic cinema. And basically, what happens is
So basically, it's like a cinema bin.
Yeah, it is, exactly. It's a cinema that you can watch from your phone, Michael. Yeah. And basically what happens is every month they choose a selection of classic films that they feel you might like to see. All the films are free as long as you pay the subscription fee. I think the subscription fee is around $8.99.
$8.99 a month, but they have a 3-month trial at the moment, I think, because of COVID-19.
Because of COVID-19, so you should check that out. They do kind of themes of a week. Sometimes they'll do a sci-fi theme. Sometimes they'll do a Western theme where they'll choose a catalogue of films that fall within that category, and you can have a look at them. They're usually international, so if you don't like subtitles, probably stay away.
Or learn the bloody languages.
Did you see that from Hulu? That was quite entertaining.
No.
Did you see that little rant from Hulu?
No, go on.
All of the Korean cinema is now on Hulu. The Parasite, all the classic ones from Boon. I'm gonna get his name wrong. Boon Jung-ho. No.
Yeah, it's close enough.
The guy who won the Oscar. All of his films have been uploaded to Hulu, and they've been inundated with complaints that they won't dub Parasite. And Hulu's response to that was, if you don't like reading, learn Korean. Because they're not going to dub it. Which I thought was pretty good.
Good on you, Hulu.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, and I thought that's what you were mimicking there. Anyway, back to Mubi, Michael, because that was a bit of a rant.
All right, calm down there, Anthony Mackie.
What they'll do is basically,
go on.
They'll give you a little breakdown on the film so that you can understand it a little better, and then they provide useful links to learn more about the film after you've watched it.
Oh, very good.
And very often they'll do a retrospective on a director's work. So for our particular penchants and tastes, they might do Jodorowsky, high concept sci-fi horror fest, and they take a look at some international horror cinema, and they give a little video breaking down what they're going to be talking about. I've used it before, Michael. And it's pretty good. And Michael, you said there were some pretty interesting things on here
because I'd never heard of it, Ben, until Nine Wassies recommended it for us. And I had a quick look there today, and yesterday. And I saw, Ben, that nearly all of the Vengeance trilogy that you were going on about a couple of weeks ago are on there.
Yapping my gums about.
Lady Vengeance is on there. Old Boy is on there this week.
Yeah, so just go check it out.
It's kind of been a lot like a better version of what we were trying to achieve with Collecting Issues, our monthly book club.
Yeah, almost 100 times better.
Yeah,
due to corporate backing and a general budget.
Yeah. Funding. Yeah.
Yeah, funding is what helps, ladies and gentlemen. So, Mubi, if you'd like to do a collaboration with us, we'd love to do one with you. Yeah, basically, you could.
If you'd
like to watch that trilogy, go on.
Oh, fuck it. I say, if you'd like our surface level breakdown of any of the films you're showing, peppered in with some quite basic level humor, then we'll do a team up.
We're right here. We're not going anywhere. It's lockdown.
Yeah.
No, but what you could do is watch those 3 films that we talked about last week, and more importantly, you could bloody listen to the podcast afterwards and see if you agree.
Yeah, exactly.
So go check that out. An unofficial collaboration.
They don't know.
Yeah, they don't know. The one that Nine Wassies recommended to us is Bacurau, which is a Brazilian Portuguese language film, and it's a Western.
Oh.
And it's kind of like a Sergio Leone homage about a modern Brazilian town, and it's a bit bizarre. It's a bit magical realism. It's a little bit. It's hugely politically satirical of the current establishment and right wing in Brazil. And it looked like a bloody interesting film, Michael. I'll be watching it tomorrow or this afternoon. It depends.
Very good.
On how
okay,
I'm feeling.
We'll have a bloody chat about it next week then.
So bloody Nine Wassies. Thank you very much.
Another film, Ben, that I thought we would maybe take a look at. Have you ever heard of this? Sorry, this is a bit weird and rambly and apropos of nothing. But have you ever heard of Galaxy of Terror?
First of all, just before we continue, apropos of nothing would have been a great name for this podcast. And second of all, no, I haven't, Michael.
Galaxy of Terror is a Roger Corman film. It was a kind of alien ripoff.
Oh,
an alien ripoff from from the early 80s, I think, or maybe the late 70s. But behind the scenes, one of the most important and influential movies ever made.
In what way, Michael?
We'll get into it next week because I'm actually going to watch the damn thing. But I've been watching a few. I've been watching a few YouTube videos about it, and I've been reading a few articles about it. It's a fascinating film.
Okay.
So I might watch the thing. We'll have a chat about it next week. But Ben, amongst other things, it was basically the film that got a young Jim Cameron started.
A young Jim Cameron?
A young Jimmy C.
Who went on to direct such classic films as bloody Avatar and Avatar 2. Oh, wait, Avatar 2 is not out.
That's not out yet. That's not happening. He took a brief break from being under the sea in a submarine to come up and make some films.
I think he does that every once in a while. I think at this stage, Michael, it'd probably be better if he stayed under the sea in his little submarine.
Well, you lay off Jimmy C, Ben. I'm going to watch.
Right,
I'm going to watch Galaxy of Terror for next week's episode, and we'll have a little chat about it.
Galaxy of Terror. Third note, can we change the name of this podcast to Apropos Nothing?
It's too late, Ben. It's too late.
I quite like that as a title.
It's probably
of a podcast.
taken as well.
I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to search that afterwards, and if it's not taking, we're changing the name of the podcast.
Oh, right.
Apropos, no, we're not going to change the name of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We're too egotistical to do that.
It's too late, Ben.
Yeah, anyway. I may just start my own podcast called it Apropos Nothing.
Very good.
Apropos of Mick.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Oh, no, that wouldn't work because I'm not funny without Mick. It doesn't work.
No.
I'm just a moody guy that sits in the corner in black clothing and talks about tropes.
Yeah. So I'm here to talk about tropes, guys, and when you hear about these tropes.
When you hear about these tropes.
Benjamin.
Ooh, have I got some tropes for you.
Speaking of tropes, isn't it always funny in popular culture when fiction invents its own pantheon of gods?
It's smooth as, Michael. Apropos of nothing as usual. So basically, Michael, the day that we're recording this very day, tis Easter Sunday.
Tis Easter Sunday, the egging of days.
2020.
Yep.
The day when the mythical elder god Istiara Bunny descends from his other realm and sows his children in the earth.
Yeah.
And they come in the form of chocolatey eggs.
Delicious.
And 4 months from then, they will burst from the earth and devour humanity. No, of course, I'm talking about
Easter Bunny,
Michael.
It's Easter.
It's Easter. And it got me thinking, Michael, I love an elf fictional
Yeah, you do.
deity. It's my bread and butter, Michael. It's my whole vibe.
It's your chocolate egg.
It's your chocolate egg. And it got me thinking, Michael. So I've put together a little episode, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the more interesting bloody deities,
Fictional deities,
Ben.
Of course, Ben.
Deities. I mean, technically,
Of
Michael.
course, you know what we're saying. Do you know what I'm getting at, Ben?
I tell you what, Michael. I think Nine Wassies can say it better because he commented on our Instagram story saying, "I said, who are your favorite fictional gods?" And he said, Jesus.
Good.
So
yeah,
I think that's what we're getting at, Michael.
So
I think that's what we're getting
this
at.
This week's episode is about the alleged historicity of Jesus Christ.
Yes. We've partnered with the History Channel to make an in-depth documentary about, is Jesus an alien? That's the big question. No, to set up the rules for this particular little ditty, Michael, we often talk about lore and mythology, but you and I often deep dive into representations of real-world mythologies in fiction. So we'll take a look at a Thor or a Cuchulainn, and we'll take a look at that. However, this time, Michael, we're taking a look at completely fictional, made up for a specific property.
So all gods is what you're
and
saying
monsters. Yeah, I mean, again, Michael.
You see what I'm getting at,
Michael,
Ben?
Lay
you
off.
see what I'm getting at?
Lay off there, Mick. Just give it up.
They're all imaginary.
Give it up,
is what I'm
Mick.
saying.
So Michael, I've taken a look at a range of different topics, from video games to literature, to all kinds of things, and we're going to take a look at that today, Michael.
Delicious.
Look at it today. The inspiration of the thing. I'm going to start with. We're going to start with, Michael, bloody
one of the
Mortal
best.
Mortal Kombat. That was pretty slick, Michael. That was pretty slick. I quite enjoyed it. So, I mean, we're all introduced to one very important god in Mortal Kombat, and that's Thunder
He's
God
one of the
Raiden.
best. He can do
Thunder
a
God
teleport.
Raiden. Got that
Yeah,
funky
he has
hat
a
game.
Funky hat. He can do a teleport. He can shoot a lightning at you. He can do more lightning until you explode. He can fly across the room horizontally and give you an L shove.
Yeah. So, I mean, with regards to this particular thing, there are gods all over Mortal Kombat, Michael. And they can sometimes be beaten up by movie stars, by Johnny Cage. So I don't know how powerful they are as gods. But look, Michael, I took a look. I had a little nosy around the old Mortal Kombat ideology and belief system, the pantheon. And it's pretty interesting, Michael. There are distinct realms in the Mortal Kombat. The three particular ones are the very creatively named Earth
Outworld.
Realm. Outworld again, just really stretching the creative juices there. And then there's the Nether Realm as well, which is
it's around the crotch.
Dead within
oh no, sorry, yes.
No. And apparently there are various guardians for the different
Earth Realm.
realms. Who's the guardian of your crotch, Michael? Is that Ed or Taylor?
Personality. Keeps my crotch perfectly untouched.
I think we've peaked. I think that's it. I think we're done. That's
good, very good,
Michael. Anyway, moving on from there. Each realm gets a protector. And Raiden is Earthrealm protector. He's the former Elder God of Thunder, and now he's just currently a God of Thunder.
Is there a thing whereupon he became less powerful in order to take part in Mortal Kombat because he wasn't? Go on.
He did. He was an Elder God previous to that, and Elder Gods are the more traditional versions of a deity that we would kind of associate with someone like I suppose more of a Titan, like Kronos or something like that in Greek mythology. And because Shao Kahn's acting the Mickey, Shao Kahn is the overlord and dictator, I guess, of Outworld, and it turns out that Outworld used to have a protector as well, and it was none other than Mr. Shao Kahn. Shao Kahn was supposed to be the protector of Outworld and to defend it from evil and stuff like that. Turned into a bad egg. Classic bit of Shao Kahning. Basically, Raiden was like, well, don't you go acting the bollocks now, and I'll take care of this. And then everyone was like, whoa, Mr. Been around since the dawn of time deity. I think somebody's on the roids there. So how about we get off those performance enhancing powers there, bud, and you just kick it down a notch.
We're going to reduce you to a level of a guy whose special move is doing the splits and punching in the groin.
Hadouken. Wrong franchise. Sorry. Wrong franchise. But as I said, he's a thunder god, Michael, and he takes a serious amount of inspiration from the old thunder bearers from real world mythology, the old Zeuses and Thors. But his main inspiration, and again, just showing off the creativity of the creators of Mortal Kombat, is Raijin, which is very close to Raiden, if you're into phonetics. And Raijin is the Japanese god of thunder. So he's a big bloody flaming-headed god that loves hurling the thunder and lightning about.
He's also very heavily inspired, Ben. I'm pretty sure we've talked about this on the podcast before. He was very, very, very heavily inspired by the three storms of Trouble in Little China. You remember the film Big Trouble in Little China, don't you?
I did. I watched it specifically for that episode.
Which episode?
Yes. The episode where we discussed that. You discussed it with me, with Shane. And I went and watched it.
I don't remember that.
Yes.
God.
We haven't done a full retrospective.
God, we've done a lot of podcasts.
Upon, we should do one on.
There's going to be a remake, isn't there?
I'm going to write that down.
Anyway, Jack Burton is...
Who's Jack Burton?
The character Jack Burton.
The character. Sorry, the character.
I would say probably they'll get Chris Hemsworth. But Tom Cruise, older than the original. What was I saying? Yes, in that there are three storms. I think it's three, and they are thunder, lightning, and rain, or something like that. And they very much inspired Raiden's look. Yeah,
they have the costume,
the wide-brimmed hat, the shooting electricity, the big glowy eyeballs.
Classic.
One thing they don't have
that
Raiden did have is a French accent.
No, that's from noted friend of the podcast, Christopher Lambert.
Yeah.
Or Lambert, if you really want to piss him
Raiden's
off.
good. I like Raiden. Raiden's my favourite character in Mortal Kombat. Yeah, I like doing shooting in lightning.
Is he?
I like shooting in electricity. I like flying across the screen vertically and then giving someone a shove. Just a little shove.
You love a spinny shove.
Benjamin, sorry to go off topic here.
Yeah.
I'm talking about lightning gods and Raiden. Apropos of nothing, Ben, but who is that man over your right shoulder? I don't.
You know exactly who it is, Michael.
I can't make it out. It's a bit blurry. Is it Michael Collins? Is it Michael Collins? Is there a picture of Michael Collins in your living room?
Yeah.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to have to put this on the gram.
There he is. There's the big film himself.
So he's just hanging out. He's just hanging out back
Brilliant.
there.
Excellent. Okay. What were we saying? Do you have any more funny gods to talk about?
Yeah, anyway, I mean, Raiden is far more a traditional god, Michael. Like I said, he belongs to a pantheon and it's an established belief system. But I'm also into real funky gods that kind of pop up out of nowhere and are specifically created in different things. I love a neutral god, Michael. I don't necessarily like gods that are good and evil. I like weird gods that like to watch. Good. I like the voyeur gods, the kinky gods. You know yourself. And one of the ones that I found, Michael, is from kind of, I suppose it's cult classic game Dishonored. I think certain people love it, certain people hate it. It's a first person assassins game, Michael. It would have come out during that big boom of stealth based games around the Arkham Asylum time, that kind of thing. Yeah, it was a PS3 era thing. I'd say it draws a lot of its inspiration heavily from Thief, actually, in terms of aesthetic and stuff like that. It's a Victorian steampunk narrative. No, I hate it, Michael. But the world building is quite interesting, Michael. It's a very grim Victorian era kind of steampunky town, and it's set around a man called Corvo, and Corvo is the bodyguard for the Empress.
Yes,
he's also slipping into the Empress on the side. And basically, unfortunately for Mr. Corvo, and I think the BBC drew a large amount of inspiration for their hit series The Bodyguard from this. The Empress is assassinated in the opening act of the game, and he is framed for her murder.
Yes.
And when he is trapped in a cell, he is approached by a mysterious entity known as the Outsider. And the Outsider, he's a bloody skulky, shadowy bloody man. And he looks a little bit like Johnny Depp from what was the name of that awful film he did with Tim Burton?
Well, now where do we start there? I think you mean.
Did you see what I did there?
I do think you mean Sweeney Todd there.
No, I don't. I mean, the one where he played a vampire. Barnabas Collins. He plays Barnabas Collins. What one was that? Dark Shadows. That was it. It was bloody awful. He looks very like that guy, but with a form-fitting Hot Topic jacket. And basically, he bestows upon Mr. Corvo power through something called the Mark. So he places an edgy tattoo on the back of Mr. Corvo's hand. A guy called Mark. A little guy called Mark is placed on the back of his hand. Yes, it's very interesting. And then basically it turns into a buddy cop film between Corvo and his little buddy Mark. And they kind of go and get revenge for the murdered Empress. No, I'm kidding, Michael. After he's bestowed with the Mark, he kind of manifests a series of bloody grim and gothic powers, so he can go about the town assassinating the bejesus out of people. And as the story unfolds, we get a little bit more about the Outsider. The Insider. We get a little bit more information on that, and it turns out that the Outsider is an avatar for the kind of governing belief system of this world, which is the Void. And the Void is kind of a parallel dimension to ours, and the Void seems to be a big kind of manifestation of chaos incarnate. Yes, and as we go through the world of Dishonored, it gets kind of more and more interesting, because in Dishonored 1, we just know that the Outsider is the god of the Void. And then through various DLCs and Dishonored 2, we find out that the Outsider is actually a human avatar to the Void. So he was once human. He's now a god. But it was once a little human boy, a little orphaned boy.
Apotheosis?
Apostasis or something like that. I'm going to go with the simpler.
Yes.
He ascended to godhood. He ascended to godhood through a pretty awful ritual. He was kidnapped by a bunch of people, and sacrificed in the void. So what's interesting is the outsider is not one fixed deity, but a revolving door of deities. He always becomes the outsider, but the outsider can be removed or killed, and so the void can exist without an avatar for a while, which means gods don't have influence over the mortal world for a while until they're given a new avatar. And I like this kind of thing, Michael. And one of my favorite things about the outsider, Michael, is he's not omniscient. He doesn't see all and do all. So what he is he's partially precognitive, so he can see glimpses of the future. And then what he does is he interacts with people he feels will heavily affect the future. And he gives them his mark. He gives them the mark of the outsider, and that lets them manifest powers. But the most interesting thing, Michael, is that those powers manifest differently for each individual. And there have only really been around 12 people within the history of humankind that have borne the mark of the outsider. But basically he interacts with those, and it's quite funny because there are cults all over the world of Dishonored in his honor, where people try to gain his favor, and he has absolutely no time for them, Michael, because he was a young man who was sacrificed by a cult
he's like,
to
get
become
out of here,
the avatar of the void.
Get out of here, Tom Cruise.
Yeah. So I'm really fascinated. One of these days we are going to be on a Scientology blacklist. It's going to be awful. Yay! Our lives will be made a living hell, and Louis Theroux will do a documentary on us.
Probably good for podcast listens.
Yep, and probably good for podcast listens. We'll probably rock it then. If you want to help us get podcast listens, Jamie, don't tell the cult of Scientology. Just spread us about on your Instagram. But anyway, one of my favorite things about this particular god is that he just likes to watch. He's quite fascinated, and he's kind of so he likes to watch the outcome. He's fascinated by choice and morality and things like that, and he likes to watch the outcome as it spins along. He's quite heavily influenced, Michael, I would imagine, by some of the classic Victorian deities. A lot of Victorian fiction, especially when it came to the horror genre or the supernatural genre of fiction, they would take kind of lesser gods from established pantheons, for example, your Pans, or something like that, and they turned them into big twisted things that kind of manifested themselves slowly over time. A creeping possession, if you will. Not an outright possession, Michael, but a kind of corruption of the mind over time through exposure to different things. I've talked about it before on the podcast, Michael. We have people like the King in Yellow, who's popped up a couple of times in modern incarnations. We have famous Victorian ghost story, The Yellow Wallpaper, where someone is driven demented by decaying yellow wallpaper. It sounds bizarre, but it's actually quite good. And then we have something like Pan, who's kind of a god of hedonism and decadence, and he kind of preys on the willing and the interested. It's all very decadent, twisted, and odd and thing. But I like the idea of a void being interested in stirring up chaos in our dimension.
Very good.
I like all that. Very Lovecraftian.
Benjamin, speaking of neutral gods, gods who don't get involved, gods who don't really are good or evil, it's hard to get more neutral than good old Crom. Ben, to give us a very quick, who is Crom even?
Crom is the fictional deity to whom Conan refuses to pray to. Crom is, I suppose, very similar to the outsider in the fact that he doesn't care much for belief. Yeah. He doesn't really give a toss. It's from Robert E. Howard's fantasy
Conan the Barbarian.
Conan. It's probably more than likely, Michael, inspired by the Celtic tradition of Crom Dubh or Crom Cruach, who was a murder god in Scottish Celtic mythology.
Good research, Ben.
A bloody murder god. So yes.
The good thing about Crom, Ben, Michael, is in the Robert E. Howard books about Crom, about Conan, there's no evidence that Crom is real. Because Conan doesn't pray to him. All Crom does is that when you're born, he gives you life and the ability to kill. And that's it. That's his dealings with you. That's all you're getting out of Crom.
That's all you need.
After that, he doesn't really care. The worst thing you could do is pray to him, because then you get his attention, and he's not very helpful, and he might be spiteful.
Yeah, he's a big murder guy. He's
a
capricious,
useless fucker,
Michael.
and the whole relationship seems to be not very useful. But then, Ben, in the films, he becomes a bit more of a real. Not, I mean, we don't see him in the films or anything, but Arnold does pray to him.
Yeah, he does.
And he asks for Crom's help to get revenge for his wife, and then he prays to Crom. In the second film, he prays to Crom quite a bit. No, you shouldn't pray to Crom, because the worst thing you could do is get Crom's attention. Because, well, he just doesn't care. He's just a prick. So,
it's a big old spiteful prick.
All throughout Crom's existence, Ben, the one defining question about Crom was, does Crom exist? Like, sometimes people will curse someone by invoking Crom's name, but then Crom will never actually just personally strike that person down. Until, Ben, this very year's Marvel Comics, Conan the Life and Death and Conan the Barbarian. We actually met Crom. No, he was a prick.
Nice guy.
He was an absolute prick.
No, he was, yeah. Oh, I thought you meant...
No, not Kron.
Podcast Crom.
We haven't been saying Kron. We've been
Kron.
saying We've been saying Kron.
That's what I got wrong.
You got mixed up again.
That's what I got wrong. Sorry, Kron. Sorry, Kron. I got confused.
No, in this, Ben, we met Kron, and it turned out that when Conan died, in the afterlife, Ben, he kept trying to scale a mountain, to reach the top of the mountain to confront Krom. Not Kron. Not our friend Kron.
He's like...
Jesus, this is confusing.
I would watch a YouTube channel called Crom Crafts, where a murderous deity makes little...
That would be good,
kind of
wouldn't
Warhammer
it?
figurines.
That would be very good.
I'm very into that.
Yeah.
Crom Crafts. Crom, if you're listening.
Crom.
Go on, start a YouTube channel there.
Yeah, not Kron.
Crom. Yeah. Crom.
Yeah.
Crom. Anyway, Conan is scaling the mountain.
Why is he scaling the mountain? Because he's making love to the mountain. That's a William Shatner joke there. What was I saying? He's scaling the mountain, Ben, because he wants to get to the top of the mountain and presumably punch Crom in the head. But guess what? Not Kron! Crom! He wants to punch Crom in the head, not Kron. No one would punch Kron in the head. So, what am I saying? When he gets to the top of the mountain, guess what he finds out, Ben? Crom is the mountain. He's not a god who lives on top of the mountain, but he is, Ben, the very mountain itself. And then he brings him back to life and stuff. So after nearly 100 years of Conan, Marvel Comics took the step of confirming that Crom is definitely real and having Conan speak to him. It was a big development, Ben, in the world of Conan.
Yes. I think it also marks out Crom as a very powerful deity, because the reason that Conan dies in the first place in that particular run is that he's facing up against a demonic god. Red force, a blood god that's supposed to be the end of all creation in
the Hyborian Age. It's Earth. Yeah, it's Earth.
The Hyborian Age. It's supposed to be the end of the Hyborian Age.
In the comic, not our friend Crom, the god Crom, says Raziel, the blood god, will wreck things for a while, but then the other gods will all sort it out and everything will go back to normal. Yeah, so basically, I don't need to get involved here, lads. But it turns out that if Crom decides to get involved, he's more powerful than Raziel and other blood gods. So he's just like, okay, fine. You're immortal now, you son of a bitch.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it? That Crom can just
you're
be like,
now. Off you
go. I'll just defy all the other gods.
Like
have fun.
Yeah, he's good.
I find that fascinating. Yeah, Crom just does his own thing. He's just completely against following the will of the gods. Speaking of people who don't follow the will of the gods, Michael, bloody Kratos from
he's got a nice beard.
God of War series on PS3 and 4. He's got a lovely beard, Michael. I'd imagine you make a very
I'm probably
good
too
Kratos.
small now, Ben, because I'm doing so much running. I don't know. I'm not weighing myself.
Michael? That's fair enough. It's probably a healthy choice.
Simplicity. What did Coach Clive said? The dedication to the simplicity of it is the thing. I don't know if Coach Clive was quoting it. Oh, that's hard to say. Or if he just came up with it himself. But yes, I'm not weighing myself. I'm just doing it.
Okay, fair enough. I respect that. That's respectable. Anyway, moving on from there. Kratos, God of War. He's the last Spartan. He's got all kinds of mythology built around him, but there's no such thing as Kratos in the original Iliad or the Odyssey or whatever you want to call it. He's not a traditional character in Greek myth, but he does ascend to become the God of War. And to do that, Michael, he removes the old one because there was already a God of War, Ares. And he takes care of him. And it's just interesting to see, again, a mortal ascend to absolute godhood and become the God of War. It's quite an interesting story there. It's where they play with an established pantheon, the Greek pantheon, the Dodecahedron, the original 12 gods of Greek myth. And my God, Michael, I don't think anything has done more to just paint the gods in the least
real bunch of dickheads
that they could have. They're in the God of War games. There is nothing you enjoy more than pummeling gods into a bloody paste, because they're all selfish, they're all conniving, they're all dickheads, and there is nothing quite as enjoyable as an old pummeling of a god. And that goes on for 4 games, Michael. He works his way through every single deity, character, demigod, semigod, kind of god, legendary figure in Greek mythology, and just eradicates them all.
Yes.
And then, Michael, he moved to a whole other pantheon. And now he's doing the exact same old Kratos shenanigans.
The old Norse gods.
With the bloody gods of Norse mythology. And I find it very interesting, Michael. It's an interesting continuation of deification. And what's most interesting, Michael, is it turns out that he's now weaving the story of Norse mythology. So spoilers for
big spoilers here. Here they come. Here come the big spoilers.
The latest one in PS4.
Here they come.
So they're coming. If you haven't played it and you don't want to know him, he has a son, and he had a son with the bloody giantess. And that son is none other than bloody Loki. He's going to be the death of the gods. So it turns out that it wasn't Odin who adopted him, but it was bloody Kratos who had a son, a god killer, which is interesting because Kratos is the original Greek god.
His son is going to take over.
And I mean, Death of the Gods as a part of fiction is huge, Michael. We love an old Death of Gods. I don't think anybody does that any better than our friends over at Supernatural.
They're always killing gods.
Oh, they just roam around, ganking them, as Dean would say. It's terrible. Death of Gods, great piece of fiction writing. Michael,
hello, Benjamin.
Yes.
For the first time in quite a while, I watched some Buffy the Vampire Slayer, specifically Benjamin, because we're talking about fictional gods. I watched the series which evolved around a fictional god, Series 5.
Oh, which fictional god was that, Michael?
Well, it's a made-up god, Ben.
That's aren't they all, Michael?
That's what aren't they all? You see what I'm saying? Welcome to this podcast on the alleged historicity of Jesus Christ. Benjamin,
aliens.
What I knew it was aliens. In this season, the big bad, as you know, Ben, Buffy is very famous for its big bads, but the big bad was a sexy lady called Glory.
Ooh.
And Glory turned out to be a hell god.
Oh.
And she was a god of a hell dimension, and her real name was Glorificus. Which
terrible name.
Great name, absolutely great name.
Terrible name.
Glorificus was one of a pantheon of 3 hell gods, but she became too powerful and the other 2 teamed up to banish her from their hell dimension.
Classic.
So they banished her to Earth, Ben.
Oh no, there's nothing worse. To hell or to Earth, that's what they say down there.
Ben, they couldn't, because she was so powerful, they couldn't kill her, and they had no way of really stopping her from taking over the Earth dimension either. So they put her into the body of a young man. They created a young human boy and put her essence into him. But he didn't know.
Oh, that's all very risque.
Yeah, he didn't know. And every now and then she would get control and he would morph into her and then do evil hell god things. But then he would wake up and not know what had happened and why he was wearing a dress.
So it was a strange Roman Hulk, is what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of. It was like if instead of the Hulk inside you, you had an evil, sexy lady hell dimension god.
And tell me, Michael, when he transformed, did he transform into a sexy hell god lady?
Yes.
Oh, well, that ticks several of my boxes. Okay.
Oh yes, and Ben, you'll be delighted to hear his name is Ben.
Sure, look. Sure, listen. That's
So-
really what you've been building up to with this bit.
That's what I was saying, Ben, that every Ben has inside them a strong, confident lady. Because I was so distracted by the last couple of episodes. Because, Ben, by the time the last couple of episodes roll around, the magical barrier between them is starting to break down. So they become aware of each other. And they start conflicting, and he's influencing her, and
It's a classic dilemma.
They keep switching backwards and forwards quickly with a classic 90s morph.
Oh, no way.
But
That
the best
sounds
bit
awful.
is when no, it's fine actually. It's pretty good. I mean, Buffy is still very good. It's not as good as it was because it's a bit odd. It's a bit slow actually compared to modern TV.
It's also time is not really great for any 90s thing.
Yeah, exactly. But there are some great lines where basically people give out to Ben. So it really loaded me up with ammo that I'm going to use over the coming couple of weeks.
All right, okay.
I've recorded some of the clips, Ben, so we can upload them to YouTube over the next couple of days.
Great.
Or Instagram.
Yeah, we'll put it on the gram. Put it on the gram.
But Glorificus then, Ben, they all have to do a team up to beat her up and stuff like that. But she was the first of the kind of hell dimension gods in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. In Buffy the Vampire Slayer's ever increasing need to top the previous year's big bad.
It's always the problem.
Isn't it? It's supernatural syndrome.
Yeah. It's like, as soon as Sam and Dean save the world from the apocalypse, it's game over, lads. You've done it. You've peaked.
But Buffy, rather than bringing in Christian mythology and going straight to gods and angels and vampires and Lucifer and stuff like that, Buffy never really did that. It instead went to infinite hell dimensions ruled over by capricious hell gods.
Capricious. What a word.
The other kind of powerful one was Ilaria. Do you remember Ilaria?
I don't. I have not watched much of Buffy at all.
Ilaria was in Angel, and she inhabited the body of Fred. Fred was the kind of bookish librarian lady who was a main part of Angel's team. And she was killed, and her soul was permanently destroyed and replaced with Ilaria, the hell god.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But she didn't spend most of the episode giving out about a person called Ben, so I found that less amusing.
Yeah, that would be for you.
Yeah, it was pretty amusing. I'll send you some clips. You'll enjoy it. You won't enjoy it, but I'll enjoy it.
I bet I won't. I'll send you pictures of my sad face reactions. So you can enjoy that. Happy Easter, Michael, just for you.
Oh,
just to finish us off, Michael, we're going to take a look at bloody Discworld, Michael. Bloody Discworld. Where belief, Michael, for those of you that don't know, Discworld is
I like
huge
this about Discworld.
fictional universe that Terry Pratchett created in his long-running series of novels all about that world. And one of the really interesting things, and the central governing force, the same way that gravity and other scientific principles run here in Discworld, is belief. Belief is the number one running thing. Forget about your entropy, forget about your bloody sun coming up, sun going down, gravity, celestial circulation, stuff like that. Nope, it's all about belief in the Discworld universe. It has a coined phrase: all things in Discworld exist in potentia, which means that basically everything has the potential to manifest, and really, depending on how much is believed in, that's what comes true. So, for example, to give you a very good example of this, in one of the novels, which is Equal Rights, all about witches.
Yes.
A series of witches who are less experienced debate the best spell to turn a cat into a human. And the Supreme Witch, Granny Weatherwax is her name. She's a recurring character. She explains to them that the best way to turn a cat into a human is to convince the cat that it's human in the first place. So if you convince the cat at a core level that it is a human, it will in fact become a human. And that's exactly what happens. Because in Discworld, that's exactly how it works. Which means, Michael, that gods take on a whole new meaning within that world. So, as I said before, gods in Discworld exist in potentia. So basically, any time a moment of significance occurs, a god will manifest to become the bearer of that thing. So I think this is a little bit of a parody of the Greek god system, where gods are given responsibilities over ridiculous things. For example, the hearth of your fireplace and stuff like that. There's a god for that, and there's a god for nettles and a god for dirt on a track and then dirt on an off-road track and stuff like that. And this is really a parody of all that. So basically, what happens in this world is anytime something of significance happens, it could be two snails crossing paths, there will be a god of that. And then that god's existence is determined by how much it's believed in. And that god's power level is determined by that. Their version of Olympus is a place called Dunmanifestin. Okay? Which is hilarious for a number of reasons, Michael. First of all, it's a nice little nod to all the various Duns in the J.R.R. Tolkien run. Khazad Dun and all that kind of stuff. But also, Dun manifesting means that the god is fully formed.
I get it. I get it.
Bloody classic. Classic, Michael. But, for example, some of the gods that we have there, Michael, are Augir, who is the god of squashed animals. Bilius, who's the god of hangovers.
Yes.
And her name is Agria, and she's the god of things stuck in drawers.
Oh, yes.
So, when you're trying to open a drawer and you say, oh, for God's sake, how did that even get stuck? Who bought this? How does that work? That is literally you're praying to the god of stuck drawers at that point. And I really enjoy all this, Michael. And then my favorite thing about the belief system in
Discworld, yeah.
Is that the number one enemy of God's staying manifested is churches. Because when a church outgrows its God, or when dogma and religious rules become more important than the God itself, the God actually begins to lose its belief because the belief system is in the church, not in the God.
Oh, no.
So when you strip the personality from your God through dogma and minute hair splitting.
The film Dogma.
No, not that one. No. Dogma was the thing before Kevin Smith got his hands on it.
Okay.
Dogma is the dogmatic and stubborn pursuit of exact religious law, Michael. Dogma. Or carrying out the will of God to the letter of the book, so to speak. So zero interpretation allowed. And again, that's kind of, I suppose, a satire of all modern religion, where mega churches exist in the United States and things like that, and you kind of pick your favorite preacher and it's a cult of personality, something Anthony Mackie would probably be very much for.
You've tied it all back in together at the end.
See what I did there?
I like Margo? Small Gods. Small Gods is probably my favorite Terry Pratchett book.
It's probably the best one, Michael. One of the best ones. Probably. Small Gods, great old book. Check it out. Chickadee check.
I won't. I've already read it.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, chickadee check it.
Yeah.
Michael, will we wrap it up?
Wrap it up there, Benjo.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you believe in life after podcast? There are many ways.
In life after podcast.
One of the number.
Feel something inside you say you really don't think it's next week's episode. Yeah.
One of the ways that you can pray to the Apropos of Nothing podcast.
I can't do this. I know this episode is long. You don't need to listen anymore. You don't need to listen. No, please listen. Please do.
One of the ways you can pray to the Apropos of Nothing podcast is that you can take part in the One Punt Man Challenge, and every drop of sweat that you spill in the challenge will actually be a tribute to the gods of Michael and Benjamin's podcast.
Oh, very good.
So you can do that. If you're not sure what we're talking about there, check out the bloody gram. What are your favourite fictional deities, ladies and gentlemen? Which kind of gods and monsters did you enjoy the most from your various fictional properties that you consume? Have you used Mubi as a service? Will you be using Mubi as a service? Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, things are getting a little bit tight on the old content release end of things. And a few suggestions for episodes would not go amiss. If there's something you'd like covered on the podcast, please do get in touch with us. There are a number of ways you can do that. If you like the traditional 90s approach to the internet, you can go to our website, seomrabeag.com.
What have you got against websites?
seomrabeag.com, seomrabeag.com.
It means tiny room in Irish.
If you'd like to be more of a Gen Zer, you can get in touch with us on the gram at seomrabeag, SEOMRABEAG.
It still means Tiny Room in Irish, yeah.
Still means Tiny Room in Irish. We are on Apple Podcasts. If you're listening to us there, you can give us an L review.
Give us an L review.
That would be great for us. If you're listening to us on Spotify, bloody follow us there and share us on your Instagram story for other people to listen to and stick them in your ear holes. And then finally, if you're listening to us on Google Podcasts, I still don't know what you're supposed to do. Give your screen a little pat on the head like a good dog. I don't know.
Yeah. That's it exactly.
That's it exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it from us this week. Michael, is there anything you'd like to say to the ladies and gentlemen before we go?
Yes, we're inevitably going to get people talking about the Warhammer gods. We did think of them, but Ben wouldn't let me talk about them because we talked about them before.
I didn't say that. You could have talked about them.
That was your exact words.
Time. No, they weren't. All right, ladies and gentlemen, bye-bye.
Bye, see you next week. Bye. Very good. Very amusing. Good episode.
Hang on. My bloody mouse has decided to stop working.
Oh.
So I cannot stop.
Hope that was recording. Oh, yeah.
Can I come say hi to Ben?
No, we're still recording.
No, you're not.
We are.